Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the Tuesday, October 17th, 2023 Budget, Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee to order. First item is Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is adoption of agenda. Need a motion to adopt.
the agenda.
Support Van Sickle.
Moved by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Van Sickle. Any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, please vote. If Civic Clerk allows us to. We're having technical problems again today, Commissioners, so we might have to be doing a voice vote. Adriana will guide us through the process here.
Motion passes 13-0.
All right, next item is approval of minutes dated October 5th, 2023. Need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Grote, supported by Commissioner Van Sickle. Any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 13-0.
All right, next item is public participation. This is the first opportunity for public participation for those who would like to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on an item which is on today's agenda. There will also be a second opportunity for public participation for those who would like to speak on any issue. Anyone from the public like to speak? Agenda items only. Going once, twice. We'll close public participation. Next item is Department Recommendations, 6A. This is the 2023 Macomb County Apportionment Report. We have Kristen here from the Finance Office, the Director of Equalization. I need a motion to recommend this to full board.
So move, Hall.
Support Center.
Moved by Commissioner Haw, supported by Commissioner Romano. Kristen, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I'm bringing the 2023 Apportionment Report to you. The General Property Tax Act requires that the County Board of Commissioners approve the Apportionment Report at the regular session in October each year and to direct the various taxing authorities in the county to levy the millage rates indicated in the report against all taxable property located within their boundaries. Each taxing authority files a tax rate request form with me, and then I compile all of that into this apportionment report. The report itself summarizes all of these rolled back millage rates and their indicated tax levy amounts. I'm hoping that all of you had an opportunity to review the report without sleeping. I do have one item I would like to point out. The Richmond Township Library millage will expire at the end of November, and so I very well could not put that within the apportionment report because it'll expire before it'll be levied. And so that is on the ballot in November for a renewal, and its approval would be levied in December. So if that ballot proposal passes, then I will have to redo the report accordingly, and then I would bring it back to you in December when I come before you with my study. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about this particular report that you might have.
Chair Brown.
How much time do you have between when the municipalities tell you, because sometimes they have their millages scheduled, but is there a possibility that they could schedule something between now and the next reporting period? That could they sneak one in before your next report's in?
No, the only way a millage could be levied at this point would be to refile a form. And then if it's one that isn't subject to a vote, such as a debt change or something like that, but they would have to refile that paperwork. All those were due to September 30th. So they would be beyond the deadline. So technically, you all would not have to approve it because it would be after the filing deadline.
All right, and have all the municipalities completed their things in order? There's no one's having any issues?
So there's always issues.
But
and
anybody that hasn't been non-compliant?
everybody has been compliant. The only issue that we have is because of the due date of the form, a lot of the people levy the millage before they turn it in to me, and then we discover, oops, you rolled it back wrong, or you didn't calculate it right, or you carried over an error from a previous year. And I try to correct those before we get to that point. I do offer everybody to send it to me so that I can review the form before they sign it and make it official. I do have a couple of those, but we had some nice conversations, and we're gonna fix that
Just
for
a
the next time,
couple?
but yeah,
Okay, good, all right, good.
just a couple.
I'm just curious about the health of the operating systems, because there was a time when we had chronic problems out there, so.
No, it actually, I think by me offering to review it way ahead of time, it helps to catch those things way before they come an issue. And even, with the best of intentions, oopses do happen. And so, we just do the best that we can and correct them as well as we.
I think that's a credit to you and your staff being proactive, and that's the experience you brought to this job when you came in the first time.
My
Didn't always
staff
have that
is-
before that, so.
My staff is wonderful. I would put that best in the state. You're gonna hear me say that when I talk about my budget too, that my staff is the best in the state. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Kristen, real quick, just looking at the report, I don't know if this is common, but I noticed that there's a number of decreases. Is that common? Because I don't recall seeing these reports with the taxes
So
decreasing.
this is a really weird year for everybody. This is the first year, so I didn't want to go into a whole lot of detail. But this is the first time since proposed levy was passed in '94 where we have a CPI at 7.9%, but a capped value calculation that's capped at 5%. When I calculate the Headley rollbacks, I still have to use that CPI of 7.9. So then in the millage reduction fraction, numerator, denominator, because that full CPI is up in the top, we end up not having any rollbacks. So in a normal situation, you would have some reductions, whatever you have, just from the rollback process itself. But a lot of times on these, there's some debt decreases because the taxable values were increased at the max. So you have a situation where there's no rollback, so you're levying the highest that you can possibly levy, at the same time that your taxable values increased at the highest that they can possibly increase. This is the first time. We might be in for round 2 next year. We'll see. We have another CPI coming in at 5. We might have a couple rollbacks. We might not. We have to see how it all plays out. But this is a unique situation, and you'll see in the first couple pages of the report, there's a lot of no changes, because there were no rollbacks. I had 4 authorities that had a rollback, the rest did not.
I was surprised to see, 28%, 14%, 10%.
Well, that
One way or the other, obviously, but
The 28 one, though, is that library millage that's missing. And I think I tried to put that in the notes, that this one to be determined in the November election. But there were quite a few of the debt ones that were reduced, I guess accordingly, wanting to be fair to their taxpayers. So,
okay, great. Thank you for the explanation.
you're welcome.
Seeing no other speakers, please vote. Thank you, Kristen.
Motion passes 12-0.
Okay. Next item is budget amendment from Finance Department. This is various revenue expense items in the amount of $5,703,100. We have Steve here to discuss these as well, and we need a motion to recommend this to full board.
Support Van Sickle.
Moved by Hawes, supported by Van Sickle. Steve?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good to see you again, as always. I think I mentioned this during the budget overview a week or so ago. What I have before you today is a budget amendment to increase our projections for actual spends on revenues in some major expense categories. We do this not every single year, but it's not unusual for us to do this as we go throughout the year. You'll see that on the worksheet, we're increasing property taxes by about 1%. The Actual came in just over 7%. We had budgeted just about 6 for the year. We've got, significant increases in some of our state shared revenues. That's under the governmental section there, liquor tax, PPT reimbursement, marijuana tax. We're a little bit trending over budget on real estate transfer tax. However, we are trending under budget on recording fees due to fewer real estate transactions, refinancings and such because of the higher interest rates. Likewise, because of the higher interest rates, we are trending very positively in investment income. So you'll see there that we budgeted just over 6.5 million. We're trending toward about 8.8 for the year. So there's some significant increases there. Those are probably our 7 largest revenue items. And then as we look down toward expenditures, we talk a lot about this turnover factor, and we have a vacancy rate. So we build about a 3% savings, if you will, into the personnel budget for vacancies that occur due to timing of filling positions and so on and so forth. We are trending between 4 and 4.5% currently. We have been trending at that level for most of the year. So I'm anticipating that our personnel line item overall, not in any particular department, this is overall will be just shy of about $2.8 million if the trend continues for the rest of the year. I've mentioned on a couple of occasions, utilities, particularly electric, are trending over budget. You'll remember a year ago, Lynn Bricks was here from facilities to request a budget increase of about $1 million in utilities, and we did not. That occurred after we had adopted the 23 budget, and we hadn't come yet to make that similar adjustment for 23. That's been folded into 24. And as I go through these items, it's important to note that all of these changes essentially have been folded into the 2024 budget, particularly as it relates to revenues. But we've also increased our utility expense in 2024 as well. And then the next section under repairs and maintenance are routine maintenance projects that are undertaken by the facilities department. Some of those are not going to start this year. Some are running and trending under budget. So there's about $660,000 of savings there if you want to put it in those terms. We have a contingency of about $850,000 for COVID expenses. We've tapped into that slightly. This year, we only expect maybe to spend around $500,000. That line item has been eliminated from the 2024 budget with the expiration of the public health emergency. And then the largest item on this entire list is $8.6 million to fund various capital projects. And the list of those is attached. The one large item on here is the Faith Christian Juvenile Court renovation project that the board's approved that we need to fund from the general fund versus the capital improvement fund. And there are a couple of large items from F&O that they are intending to bring forward for approval between now and the end of this year. The intention of this is to place money in the capital outlay line item in the general fund. So it's there when they come forward with their proposals and actual costs. And then those approvals will then go through the normal course of operation where we move money from capital outlay down into transfers out to go to the capital projects fund. I know it's a little bit busy of an explanation, but the idea is to make this all one big adjustment now so that dollars are available in the future for the remainder of the year. And again, if facilities or IT come with specific projects, they will go through the normal course of operation where they bring proposals or bids, quotes, contracts, and all those sorts of things. Ben Treppa and Jacob Van Blurk are here if you have any questions specific to the list of projects that we're requesting funding for. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to
Yeah,
do my best.
we've got a few. Steve, I'm gonna just tee this up. So just so for clarity purposes, based on the capital improvement plans, the capital improvement fund for 2024, based on what you provided us, is basically gonna roll over about $2.3 million.
Yeah, and it's about what's in there today. It's
What's in
about
there today?
2.2.
Okay, so $2.3 million is in the fund sitting there to be used for these various projects. I know the recommended budget for the general fund shows about a $2.5 million decrease in fund balance as of through second quarter approximately.
Yeah, it's through the adjustments that were made through the end of June.
Okay. So basically, I mean, theoretically, these adjustments don't need to be made. You just would like them to be made in preparation of us going through the budget.
The funding for the Faith Christian purchase in the juvenile court should be approved. The other ones could be approved subsequently if and when Jaco or Ben come for requests to fund those projects for the remainder of the year.
Okay. And then next year, I know the anticipation for that specific item was $1.5 million per the capital improvement fund
Yeah, exactly.
for next year. Okay, just want to get some clarity there. Commissioner Haw.
Thank you, Chair. Hi again, Steve. I was just looking at, where'd it go? Intergovernmental. It showed 35,002, 35,002, then it drops down to 19,209. What's that about?
So,
It's down.
So that's
Under
the-
summary.
so what's happening there is that's the total, and that apologize. There are other line items that are hidden that don't have a change that make up the 35 million. My apologies for that. I can get the board a new schedule. So there's, the majority of that difference is, revenue sharing,
Okay,
which is about $18 million, and we're tracking on target. We're trending at budget for revenue sharing. So my oversight there, I apologize for hiding that row.
thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Steve. I personally don't want to send that much money over into the capital projects fund right now. I mean, for example, you look at the animal control building needs assessment. We literally just approved that and it was half, maybe more than half of what's put on here. So I worry that we shuffle this money over there and I know this won't happen, but everything comes in under what is anticipated and estimated. And then there's a chunk of money just sitting in the pot. I would rather go through this more meticulously, and as we get closer and more accurate dollar amounts, then put the money that way. That's just my personal opinion, and I know we have to do your preference is absolutely do the Faith Christian. And,
Absolutely,
Of course.
absolutely.
But
And
I think
as I mentioned, Commissioner, if these dollars would be placed into the capital outlay line item, and other than Faith Christian, the money would not physically leave the general fund until contracts and subsequent budget and related budget adjustments would be approved to move the money from capital outlay to transfers out, which is the normal course of operation.
So, okay, so we move this money over there. Let's just say we do it at full board. The money's moved over there and it's sitting there, right? So as projects come, that's when you start pulling the funds, correct? Is that,
When projects come
really
forward,
simplifying this.
That's when we move, that's when the money moves from the general fund to the capital projects fund.
so let's say we finish all the projects and there's still $1 million sitting there. What happens to that $1 million?
We throw a party.
We don't do what
So-
Harold said.
So if I understand you correctly, so we move the money to capital outlay in the general fund.
Yes.
Jake or Ben come forward and say, I've got a project here for the underground electrical project, just for example. They come in, it's budgeted here, estimated at 3.3 million, comes in, they got quotes for 3 million. You get approval for 3 million. We move 3 million to the capital projects fund, the other 300,000 just rolls into the bottom line of the general fund. If your question is, if the final cost comes in at 2.8 million, is that, I'm not sure.
You
if
answered
That's
it
where you're
first.
going.
You were good
Okay,
right then.
okay, good.
I'm just curious where that extra.
It falls to the bottom line as a budgetary savings.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon,
Good
Steve.
afternoon.
All the items in the list showing the budgetary changes have, I assume they're budget line item numbers with them, except for personnel. And you show us no detail as to where the personnel savings are coming from, which departments and which line items.
This is an estimate overall for the entire general fund. So you're right, I don't have a breakdown by department. I can calculate that. What we typically look at is, we look at the personnel line item in total, and then we're estimating that. That would be spread at the end of the year based on actual expenses by department.
So there are no specific personnel savings in this personnel 2.7 million.
No, that would be we'd put that in the non-departmental department, and that's where that 3% or 4% turnover factor is in the proposed budget and in every year's budget.
And you do this by looking at overall payroll or?
Yeah, we look at overall payroll line item by item, regular pay, part-time pay, overtime, healthcare premiums, et cetera, project them out for the rest of the year based on where they're at today, and look at the budget. And it's trending at 4 to 4.5%.
Okay. And if I'm understanding everything right, the list of proposed projects is not, we're not approving those today.
That's correct.
You're just telling us that's what your thinking is.
And we're asking the board to approve us to put money in the capital outlay line item in the general fund in non-departmental, which is where the pool of money goes at the beginning of the year based on the capital improvement plan.
And that's the 5.7 million.
The 5.7 is the net of all this. What we're asking is to put $8.7 million into capital outlay. And then we're gonna reduce personnel by 2.8, reduce various supplies and services by 246. We're gonna increase utilities by 934, decrease natural gas by 216. I just go down the list.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then we're increasing revenues, generally speaking, increasing revenues in these categories other than recording fees, which we would reduce because we're trending under budget on recording fees.
I just want to circle back around to the juvenile court demo again. That's what we just passed, the 495,000 to demo that, correct?
Yes. And then the purchase of the Faith Christian was also subsequently approved, and the estimated cost of that entire move and renovation and demo of juvenile courts, 4.5 million, I think.
So if we already approved the funds to demo the juvenile court building, why is it in this list?
Because we should have come to you with this whole list earlier, is what I'm gonna say. That's what we should have done earlier in the year when we were approving those other projects.
Okay. I'll have to think about that for a little bit. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Chair Brown.
Thank you. The projects, facilities projects for the remainder of 2023 and the IT projects for the remainder of 2023, are those out to bid now? Are those on the street? Where are they at with the?
So some of the projects that Steve had listed, like you mentioned, you just saw this week. The others, I have several that we expect to go out to bid in the next week or two. The large project I have listed in the capital plan, the 3.3 million for the underground electrical project, I'm 50-50 whether we're gonna make it this year or not. We're running out of time with weather, and it's an extremely complicated project. So as I mentioned to Steve and his group, I'm not certain I can make that happen this year. But my concern is, then gonna be rolling that expenditure into next year, because it's an important project.
We've already selected a contractor for that.
No, that has not gone to bid yet.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you need weather to do the bids and so forth?
Yeah, I still have to go through the whole process, and it's such a complicated process that my intention would be have the bid on the street longer than 3 weeks, because it's gonna take them a while to figure out these documents.
Yeah, that's an important crossroads over there.
It is.
We don't need that to go out.
Yep, so,
All right, okay. Thank you.
yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Steve, in regards to these, this is as of the end of the third quarter, these adjustments, are you moving more towards a quarterly adjustment with the board? Or, you know, and the reason I'm asking that is because when we passed our budget last year, we had a $39,000 surplus, and in the recommended one, based on where you were currently at when this was compiled, we're at a shortfall of $2.5 million. Is that something that you're looking to start doing on a quarterly basis, or are you looking to do it in conjunction with the budget?
We are moving toward a change in my office to do monthly closes, which will help our projections significantly. Some of these revenues come in sporadically and not on a monthly basis, so we don't necessarily know where we're trending until maybe midway through the year. So my goal would be to have a better estimate toward the middle of the year. I can't necessarily say the first quarter. For example, we don't get taxable value numbers through the equalization process until April, late March, early April. So we don't necessarily know for the first quarter where our property taxes are trending. Similarly, we get revenue sharing 6 times a year, every other month. Liquor tax we get 4 times a year, so every quarter. So the liquor tax distributions can be a little bit uneven. So it's not necessarily as accurate as it could be to come after the first quarter. But to answer your question, we're moving toward a closing process. Particularly, that was one of our goals.
That's great news. That's great news.
That's one of our goals with Workday, was to be able to
Yep.
close on a monthly basis. Quickens, shortens up the period to get the audit done, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So
And
that'll
you know,
be,
that was
that's a
one
significant,
of the goals with Workday was to be able to
Right.
go in that direction. So I'm glad to hear that.
yeah,
I guess when I got the budget and I saw the shortfall of 2.5 million, I was kind of set back because first of all, I thought there was an error, and then I realized, oh, okay, we've actually pulled money from the general fund
we have.
in excess of what we had budgeted to do. So,
Correct.
and that obviously happens with certain things, obviously, but I wasn't made aware of it or didn't know it until I actually got the recommended budget. So,
Right.
and then
And I think
instantly
I
called you, and
communicated-
I'm like, is there
I-
something wrong here?
No, and I
Because something's not right.
communicated with Commissioner Sabatini last night. So the big change from a slight surplus to a $2.5 million loss for the year, I would say, are primarily 2, and there's a few others in there. One, if you'll remember, the jail medical contract came back significantly higher than we had adopted last year because we expanded services at the jail. So that was about a $1.8 million increase in that contract that was not in the budget that was adopted last November. So that came in March or April of this year. So that's 1.8 million. And then there was the boat hoists at the Marine Division facility, which is about 600,000. So that's 2.4 million right there. And again, the jail medical contract, though that increase, that's been built into the 24 budget as well.
Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to offer up an amendment, if I can get some support. We have a recommendation sheet that has very lengthy motion language. Within that motion language, I'd like to amend the capital outlay expenses portion from $8,688,100 to $1.5 million.
Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. In the motion language, near the end of it, where it speaks about capital outlay expenses, and it listed as $8,688,100. I just want to change that dollar amount for capital outlay expenses to 1.5 million.
Support Wallace.
Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Question
Commissioner Hall.
for Commissioner Kraft. What are you looking to accomplish there, Phil?
It basically goes with my concerns from earlier, putting that large amount of money over there. This would cover what Steve has mostly asked for with the Faith Christian court demo, because we've already put funding towards that, but this would backfill the rest of that. And as these projects come forward and the dollar amounts become closer,
Thank you.
it's just a personal comfort, that dollar amount.
Thank you.
Chair, could I
Go ahead,
comment,
Steve.
if
We
you
have
would
other,
like?
we have other
So-
speakers too.
So, Commissioner, I would say that the amount that we need for the juvenile court, that's the 3.8. That's the difference between the 4.5 that we talked about earlier in the summer and the 500 and some $1,000 we've already moved. So I think your concern is the other $4 million or so of projects that are on here, well, $4 million of facilities projects and $1.5 million of IT projects is what I'm,
I want to be able to have enough funds there for those two projects, the Faith Christian and the juvenile court. So maybe my math is wrong from what we've already
I
approved.
think you might be
to
looking
what-
at it in the opposite.
In the opposite? Okay.
Yes.
Bear with me a minute then.
Steve, just for clarity purposes here, if we're projected to roll over $2.3 million in the fund with an additional 1.5, isn't that gonna get you basically to that number?
For this year it would, but then we're at a $2 million, that's $2 million that we're counting on in '24 to fund capital projects that wouldn't be there. So it would still be coming to ask the board to authorize movement of another 2.2 million or $2 million to the capital improvement fund.
But those would be brought in 2024, correct?
Correct.
We'll just continue the conversation here. Commissioner Lucido.
Yeah, so, real quick too, this is actually more for Commissioner Kraft. So, I don't think the 1.5 is enough to cover the already approved projects. Because we already approved the animal control building needs assessment also. And I thought the Faith Christian was over $1 million, and the court demo was, $500,000. So, I mean, that's my only concern, is that we're not transferring over enough to cover the projects that we already approved.
That's the 3.8 million plus the 80, well, 30, the 85, that came in at, I think, 36,000.
That's all I have.
Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I like the idea of what Commissioner Kraft said earlier when, when watching when they come back. Have the money set, but like, how many times will they come back? So that's a question for me. Like, will they need to come back? That's my question. Like, how many times will they come back? I'd like it to be set. I know things come up, it costs more, we realize that, but that's what I would like to see, so they don't have to come back. It's called a budget.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. To the Chair, to Mr. Schmiegel. Is the 3.8 going to take care of the situation that you need immediately?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Kraft is
And the 85, or 36,000 for the animal
Sorry?
control, and the 36,000 for the animal control assessment, needs assessment, the first line item
Is
there.
that included in 3.8?
No, that's separate,
So you're talking 3.8,
plus 36,
so you're talking
3.9,
3.9.
just shy.
Okay, so Commissioner Kraft
3.9.
suggested 1.5. Is he adding that on to the 2.3, or is that something he wants in total, 1.5?
If I can jump in, my math apparently is just wrong, and the numbers that I thought I had are not jiving with what Steve is telling me right now, so.
So the number's 3.9. Would that fit into what you're thinking of, Mr. Kraft? Okay, so you want to amend that amendment of yours that I can also support?
It's all right, it's okay.
Yeah, sure, I could do that. In the meantime, Steve, you and I can chat between now and full board.
We can do that.
Okay.
That's your intention.
That was my original intention, regardless of what the dollar amount is. I want to pay for those things that, you know, the Faith Christian, the juvenile court, and the things that we've already approved. I don't want to, you know, the animal control building needs assessment and the storm
Right.
water and all that. So whatever that dollar amount is, that's what I'm good with.
So, Chair, if I may, so we're at the 3.9 is what your amendment should be,
I
Mr.
believe
Kraft, is
Commissioner
that
Kraft
correct?
has already
Thank you.
amended his
That's all I have.
amendment, so we're good there. And if Commissioner Wallace approves that, or supports that, I should say, we're good there. So I think we got the right number now at $3.9 million, because we were all confused, so we got it straightened out. So we need to vote on the amendment right now, unless there's any other questions related to the amendment. Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 13-0.
Okay. Back to the original motion, which was made by Commissioner Hall.
I withdraw.
Withdraw your motion now?
Doesn't the amendment supersede the original motion?
Yes.
It does? Okay. Then he will withdraw his motion, and we are done with this item.
I don't
Okay.
know what you did, Steve, but good job.
We can figure it out on
I
the
sometimes
fly.
get a little hyper-technical, so my apologies.
Chair,
Show him the money.
Commissioner Van
we
Sickle.
voted to amend the motion, but don't we have to vote on the motion now that we amended it? We voted to amend it, but we didn't vote on the amended motion.
That's what I had stated. For clarity, who made the original motion? Commissioner Hall, which he
Commissioner
then said he
Hall,
wanted to
Commissioner
withdraw
Van
that
Sickle's order.
motion.
Correct.
So I'll
So
make
I
a
need-
motion to send the amended motion to full board.
Support.
Okay, made by Commissioner Lucido, supported by Commissioner Zinner. Okay, now we got it straight.
Chair?
Any questions? No? Come on, Steve.
So what'll have to happen between now and full board, the utilization of fund balance is also gonna change, because we're basically adding money to fund balance, because we're not gonna put as much into expense. So I gotta recalculate.
So we'll adjust the numbers
Yeah,
correctly
I'll get you
based
adjusted
on
numbers.
the approved, and we'll
I'll
get
touch
that all
base with
sorted
Kyle.
out
Yep.
before full board. Fair enough? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Please vote.
Motion passes 13-0.
50 grand for our license.
Okay. Next, budget reviews. Everybody's anticipating today. So we have a number of different budgets we're going to talk through today. Finance, equalization, purchasing, appropriations, non-departmental, operating transfers, and debt service, which I believe Steve is handling all of these, correct?
Take questions on those. Those are fairly straightforward. Those are just every year.
Yep. Okay.
Dues, memberships, et cetera, et
So
cetera.
I need a motion to receive and file these budget reviews.
Moved by Nard.
Support Zinner.
Moved by Commissioner Nard, supported by Commissioner Zinner. All right, Steve, go ahead and tee it off for us.
All right. So what you have before you now is my budget review, very straightforward. There's one sort of significant change that I'm asking for 2024 only, and we'll get to that in a minute, but prior to that, I need to introduce some of my staff. You know Steve and Tanya. We have broken our department into teams to support various departments throughout the county. Generally, those teams have 2 fiscal analysts and then a clerical support person. So you'll be seeing various folks from my office at different budget meetings as we go through the different departments. And today I have Sonia Keel, who's a fiscal analyst, Gigi Butler, fiscal analyst, been here longer than I have, actually. Long tenured. Karen's been with us, how many years, Karen? 26, so she's one of our clerical support people, does a great job. Erica Taylor in the back. So you'll see different faces, and I'll introduce those as we go through the budget process. So anyway, very status quo. We don't have a very large budget in my office. We have about 26 people. That's one less for next year than this year. You'll remember earlier this year, we came to you and the risk manager's position was transferred from my office to corp counsel, so you'll see an increase in Mr. Shapka's budget. So no change there. Our biggest project of the year, of course, as you know very well, was the Workday project. I talked about that just a little bit ago in terms of some efficiencies that we are hoping to gain there relative to monthly closings, projections, more timely audits, that sort of thing. That was a huge undertaking. We are running our first payroll today out of Workday, so you'll get paid on Friday out of Workday for the first time. So it's just been a monumental, I can't express it enough how much of a challenge it's been for IT, my office, HR. It's just been monumental. So what we're looking for 2024 only is about $200,000 for contract services. And the reason we want that, or the purpose for that money, would be threefold. One, we'd like to bring in folks to study and evaluate our internal control environment now that we have a new accounting and payroll system in place, make sure that our workflows are going through proper approvals and those sorts of things. We'd also like those folks or other folks to help us develop some policy and procedure manuals relative to our processes, and then develop some single audit programs. So we still believe that going forward, we are in need of a single or a internal audit department. We had one many, many years ago. I'm not sure if I mentioned in the last year or two, Commissioner Romano might remember, Commissioner Sabatini maybe, Commissioner Brown. I asked for a couple of internal auditors maybe 2 or 3 budget cycles ago. We are the 3rd largest county in the state. We still feel we need an internal audit function. So we want to at least get some audit programs written so we have some things to concentrate on and look forward to in the future. Again, that would be a 1-year ask only. And the estimate there is a couple $100 an hour, so you're talking about 1,000 hours of various professional services. Other than that, very status quo budget. Again, big project for the year accomplishment was getting Workday implemented on time. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, and Commissioners, just for clarity, we're on page C36 of the budget, and we'll go through each one of these separately. Chair Brown.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, Workday, we're seeing the effects of Workday being implemented throughout the county. Those of us that aren't as directly involved with it as you are. So how is it in preparing the budget? I mean, do you think that you haven't really used it fully with the implementation of this budget, have you?
No, we have not. So that's another goal or objective with Workday, is a little more efficient, quite a bit more efficient, I should say, budget process. There's an add-on tool, it's called Adaptive. We haven't evaluated it yet, we haven't learned it, but that would be something that would I'm looking for a word, make the budget process more efficient. It's very manual now. All of these things are interrelated, Excel worksheets and spreadsheets and Word documents and that sort of thing. So the goal would be for departments to actually input their budget requests directly into Workday. So right now, we send out spreadsheets with numbers that our office recommends. Departments come back and say, well, here's the numbers we would like. We go back and forth, and then we take those spreadsheets and put the numbers in to this document, which is more spreadsheets. It's very laborious. So we would like to leverage Workday and the adaptive tool to make this more efficient. Now, the question then becomes, will we be able to implement adaptive and be able to use it proficiently enough to do the 25 budget? That becomes a question, a timing question, really. But that's the objective.
That's our objective too, because we like to budget a month earlier next year. You know, get the budget a month earlier in advance so that we're not.
Yeah, I won't commit to that.
We gave you $10 million of a new system to make it more efficient, and I know you gotta learn how to ride the bike, but, you know,
Well,
you got a whole
it's a big
6 months to
bike.
get ready for it.
It's a big bike.
All right.
So we have to get through learning how to use it for normal,
Yeah, like
day-to-day
just
process.
like our past item here a minute ago, right?
Yeah.
Make
Well,
it,
and it's
punch a
just a
button
matter
and
of,
make it easier instead of making
there's
it.
gonna be bumps in the road in terms of payroll, learn how to, we're paying vendors, but there's processes about creating new vendors. There's all sorts of things to learn. It's much more complex and complicated than the one solution system was. So,
It's a lot, but
ladies I have behind me they'll just march right up here and tell you that, because they're in it every day. So is Steve and Tanya, but it's complicated. But that's the goal and objective, is to streamline the budget process. Has been from day one. It's just a gigantic task.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, other speakers decided not to speak. Steve, really quick, a couple questions. First question I have is reimbursements for 50,000. That's new to your budget this year. What is that?
That, I believe, are chargebacks, aren't they, Tanya? I believe. Oh, yeah, it's chargeback for my administrative assistant charges time back to the pension system.
Oh, okay. So in regards to the internal controls, I've spoke about this when we had our audit review, in regards to getting an internal control audit. Is that what you're asking for here, or are you asking just as a third party to come in and just start doing internal controls as if they were our employees?
Excuse me.
No, actually a review, or if you want, I don't know about an audit, but definitely a review of our internal controls, primarily because we have a brand new system.
Okay.
And so we want to make sure that we have everything in place workflow-wise to make sure that all proper approvals are made. Who knows if they'll find something, that we could be doing better.
Okay.
An additional approval step. We think we have everything covered based on our prior experience, but we want to make sure that we do. And so that's the idea.
Okay. And you're anticipating, like you said, 200,000 to get that job done next
My
year?
estimate is always $200 to $250 an hour for a consultant, so 750 to 1,000 hours. So it's internal controls, these internal audit programs, policy and procedure manuals, that sorts of things.
Okay. Seeing no other speakers on this budget, we'll move to the next one, which is Equalization, page C31. I think, Kristen's speaking.
That's okay. Hello again. We are also status quo on our budget. We continue to run really lean in terms of operational costs. We exceed our projected revenues because of the data compilation program that we have. We sell that through the FOIA requests. And any of the increases in the budget are basically the scheduled labor agreement increases and any internal service increases, so. And we just do our thing. The only thing that you guys hear me say that every time I get up here and speak, and I will say it again, because I can never say it enough. The most important thing I can say about my department is that no matter what I put in front of them, all my employees consistently rise to the occasion, go above and beyond to meet the statutorily required duties of county equalization on your behalf. We do this for you. They're the best. They're the best in the state, and I hope that if you've ever called my office, that anybody that you've ever spoken with has been more than happy to help you. I know I am. Commissioner Brown and I go way back on phone calls at weird times of the day. Anytime any of you call me, my cell number is available. I don't care where you are, what time it is, what day it is. I will always take your call because I work for you and the taxpayers of the county. And with that, if you have any questions about my budget, I'd be happy to answer them.
Chair Brown.
Are there any members of training internally in your staff that are working towards certifications?
Yes, that's always happening. I'm always looking for my replacement because you all have about 6 years and 10 months before I'm leaving. It will be August 24th of 2030, in case anybody is tracking it. I am.
Note that for the record.
And note that for the record. Yeah, no, every interview that I do, one of the things that I tell them, even if it's for the clerical position, I'm always looking for my replacement, and I encourage everybody to take any opportunity to increase your certification. The more certified you are, the more education you take, the more work I can give you, the better job that we can do. And, I like my employees being able to do whatever we need done, so.
And where are they at in terms of you're a level 4, right?
Yes, sir.
And is there any level 3s underneath you?
I have 2 level 3s and the rest are level 2s working towards level 3. A while back, when I first came here, I asked Steve to require that my clerical people come in with the minimum MCAT certification, so that by entering deeds and processing deeds, which pretty much drives the values for the county, that those individuals who are making those determinations on whether or not to include those sales or not, at least knew what they were doing, versus my one staff member came from the health department. She was like, I never even heard of equalization. Probably many of you had never heard of equalization before you came up here, and that's okay. We do a very important job for you and for the taxpayers, so.
We don't want to be left high and dry when you leave, so we're not going to let you leave until there's a level 4, so.
That's not very fair. I will do my best to find my replacement before I leave and have some recommendations for you at that time.
That was just a joke, by the way.
That's okay.
Just for
That's
the record.
okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, seeing no other speakers on equalization, thank you, Kristen. Next is purchasing. This is pages C52 and C53 of the budget. Mark, is Mark here?
Well, hello.
Talk about his budget. First time talking about the
Yep,
budget.
first time meeting all of you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'm trying to keep it very no frills, my first go around at a budget. Have to see what I'm talking to here. We kept, basically from a head count, we're keeping the department flat, trying to get our arms around workday. I've heard it here many times. I know you're probably tired of hearing it, but we want to see what benefits we can gain from the new system. I did include, the biggest ask that I have is approximately $38,500 for third-party temporary services, because as part of the workday migration, we identified an area of the county that's still doing things very manually, and we'd like to bring them into the fold and support them from the purchasing department through workday. I don't have any information on that yet, so we're just starting meetings on that as a kind of a phase 2. So my expectation, rather than build headcount or try to build headcount into the budget for something I don't have the scope on, I just anticipated possibly having to pull in some temporary services next year as we assess that and bring it on board. I wish I had a better answer, wish I had more information on that, but that is the basis of the ask. And just to get in a little more detail, that's because my understanding is today, 4 people are doing the purchasing manually. So something's gonna have to shift. Some of the functions will stay in their department, like submitting the requisitions and things like that, but the cutting the purchase orders and taking it for approvals, all of that will still be done by my department. So something less than 4 and hopefully not much more than what we have today. Then the rest of my ask would be approximately 42,000 in equipment or furniture. I have 33,700 in here as we build out a purchasing office space, which we don't have a permanent location right now. We're sharing space in IT. I anticipate needing to buy some furniture there. If we come across something that we can reuse, which we have not identified today, we would modify that. And then in records retention and central receiving, it's really equipment replacement that's old and wore out for safety reasons. There's a few more ladders that are old that will need to be replaced next year. We need to order some more shred bins as people have returned to the office. We've noticed an increasing demand and a shortage of being able to get those around so folks can, clean up their records and so forth. And I have $1,000 for a pallet banding equipment for large warehouse bundles so that they don't fall over, fall apart, risk hurting people and so forth. And then other than that, a small $300 for some hand truck replacement, bungee replacement in the mail room for moving mail around the county. And that's it. So at that, I'll open it up to questions.
Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark, welcome. Nice
Thank you.
job on your first one. Just a couple questions real quick. This first one, it may even be for Steve. The reimbursement section jumps up to 22,000 this year. Last year was non-existent, and it sort of fluctuated. I mean, 2021 was 88,000, then it went to 2,200, and then nothing. And so I'm just wondering where 22 came from.
Talking about the revenue.
Yeah. So Commissioner, that's auction proceeds. So we previously counted for that as other revenue. We moved up to reimbursements. It's a reclassification.
Got it. Okay. And then one last question for Mark. The print shop, 1 clerical staff. Is that enough?
Print shop's non-existent. What are you talking about?
Honest answer,
There's somebody that's there.
there is somebody that's there and they were on medical leave part of the year. So that kind of explains that. I plan to look into the print shop closer once we're past the workday migration. I know there's a partial body that got approved last year to help improve that. I didn't feel comfortable bringing someone on board without getting my arms around the print shop. I think there might be some other updates and stuff that need to be made before spending that money. But short answer is I don't know, but that's my plan.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Am I understanding right that you have a lot of records that you stack in pallets, band, and then put in the warehouse?
Not records. Records are filed in shelving systems that they use ladders to reach certain high parts of the shelves.
Can we scan those and get rid of the ladders?
It's a good question. I would suspect with the amount of records, it would be quite an expense in a large project to convert that electronically. It's probably something we can look at in the future, but I don't think it's a quick.
It's only getting bigger.
Understood. Yeah, it's just haven't gotten that far yet in the time I've been here.
We'd get back that floor space also. I mean, if there's that many records, you must have quite a bit of floor space with this.
There is a lot of floor space from several things. Our inventory, our supplies, there's the area they stage when they receive, and then we're storing various things that come in, like furniture when it's being redeployed and things like that. So there's several things taking up space among the records.
I'd like to see maybe an estimate to scan all the records older than maybe 7 years, 10 years, something, to start getting them out of the building. I understand we had some records, not yours, over in the warehouse, and there was a fire and they got destroyed. And so there's also that kind of risk. I'm not looking to spend more on the budget, but maybe we can clean some things up. Thank you, Chair.
Chair Brown?
Thank you. Yeah, in your goals, you did talk about the print shop being one of your goals you're gonna look at. What about just subcontracting it out? I mean, we've had to do that because the print shop was inactive for most of this year, and delays in getting our materials was, put us behind. We just got our budget books late, and probably because, print shop just couldn't do it in enough time. And we've contracted out some of our work to do it. When you look at that, I'd encourage you to, maybe just look about just closing up the shop and go on the street, and we could probably get it quicker and maybe less expensive as well. So, I'd consider that because, it just hasn't been working out as well as we'd like. So,
Well,
nice to
absolutely
see you,
consider that.
and good luck, and we'll trust your recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your suggestions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Zinner?
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to ask if if Mark was going to, he doesn't have a projection of cost now, but if he comes to us later, will that cost come from the general fund? We would expect that to come from the general fund? If he has a cost, because he's not having a cost for us now, obviously that would come from the general fund, or because unless he has some expectation. Commissioner Brown just had an idea here, so it sounds like there's some questions here. So I just wanted to be clear that if he does come up with a need, there'll be an availability for him.
In regards to scanning
No, in regards to
or the print shop?
print shop, you said you wanted to investigate what you really needed,
There's
correct?
a half a head count in here for the print shop. I just didn't feel comfortable hiring that and bringing it on board without looking closer at the operations of the print shop.
Right.
So it's already built into the budget.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Mark, the budget shows one FTE for the print shop, so do we have one full-time employee
Yes,
designated to that?
yes, there's a half an FTE that's a clerical staff in here. So there's one print shop staff, and then in the administration, there's a half a head count, my understanding. That was approved last year.
Okay, because we're showing one, you've had one in the print shop, clerical staff, so we're assuming one full-time person is handling the print shop.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Seeing no other, Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you. So if we have a print shop, you must have leased equipment in the print shop?
I'm not sure if the equipment's leased or owned, to be honest. Do you?
It's owned? But it does have a life. It does have an expected life, right?
Yes, Commissioner Van Sickle, I know it is owned. We just bought a brand-new printer like a year ago. Pretty
Oh, okay.
substantial
I didn't
purchase.
remember that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Seeing no other questions. Mark, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking it easy on me. My first go around.
I don't know.
We look forward to your recommendations, Mark, so.
We rack him up.
Okay, next is appropriations, C64. Steve, are you gonna talk about this?
I will talk somewhat briefly about the appropriations, then take any questions you might have. So this is the section of the budget, non-departmental, where we have our dues and memberships, things of nature, like the annual audit and things of that nature. All those are very consistent from year to year, and don't change very much at all. The totals at the bottom of page 64 then carry over to page C63 under supplies and services. So C63 is the roll-up, the detail is on C64.
Is that it, Steve? You good? Okay. Commissioner Nard.
Yes, Steve, I have a couple of questions about a few items, well, two items. The 8 Mile Boulevard Association, how much does other counties along that 8 Mile stretch, how much do they contribute to that?
I don't know the answer to that.
You wouldn't know that? Okay, because, I see that we do, what, 5,000 a year to them? And I participate with them, and I know that that's a very important road there, and we've been talking about doing some improvements such as, beautification, making it the front door of Macomb County look well. So I was just wondering, why so little to that particular area. That's the very end of the county. That's one thing I was concerned about. And then I didn't understand what one Macomb is. I see that the budget is 0. So what is that?
So that's a budget that was established a few years ago for diversity efforts. We've rolled that into health and community services
Okay.
over the years.
So that's just now health and community services. So
There's several items in health and community services that,
So what did that particular, since they rolled it in, what did it used to do when it was separate? Was it something that let the nonprofits know of services or things? The reason I'm asking is because there are several nonprofits that are in South Warren that don't get any help. And they're always constantly calling me and asking me, is there something I can,
it was more
can we
for
get some help?
county-led diversity efforts. We weren't giving money to specific nonprofits out of that money. The budget, I believe, was 30,000. There wasn't a lot in there
Okay.
in the past.
Okay, yep, I just wanted to be able to give an answer when they ask. So, okay, all right, thanks.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Steve.
Good afternoon again.
I believe SEMCOG, Michigan Association of Counties, and the National Association of Counties set their, I don't know if they're called dues or contributions or whatever, based on population. Do any of the other organizations have some kind of methodology that they set, like a dues or a contribution amount for us? Or are all the other values just what we choose to do?
Depends on what the agency is. For example, the Clinton Macomb Library, that was a specific contract that was approved a few years ago. I think it's a 10-year contract. The Police Training Center is based, I think, on the number of folks that go to the academy. The Conservation District is an appropriation that, as I recall, we set that amount here. Turning Point's a contract. I think the board just approved that. I can't remember, within the last month or two. That's a contract with Turning Point. So it varies, is what I'm saying, throughout as you go down the list.
So with the organizations that we have a contract with, such as Turning Point that you mentioned, and the Clinton Macomb Public Library, that's specifically for the Library for the Blind. Who manages those contracts? Do we get any kind of a report from these organizations as to what they've done with the funds? I mean, if we have a contract, we have to know whether they fulfilled the contract or not, right?
The liaison with the Clinton Macomb Library when they came for the renewal of the contract was the planning department. Now, whether the folks from the library come back each year to provide you with an annual report, I don't know.
So we just send money off and don't know what's going on?
I don't know. So whether planning gets a report, I'm not aware.
Okay. So we'll go back to planning and find out whether they're keeping tabs on how our money's being spent. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve, can you touch on the county at large drains and the jump from, 180,000 to $1 million going across the
So
board
that
for
was
these
a
few years.
request
last year.
from the Public Works Office a year ago, so that's a 50/50 match program. So there's a $1 million appropriation, there's also a $500,000 revenue line item in charges for services that, local units then contribute 50% of. And I think when you hear from Commissioner Miller on her budget, she'll probably go into a lot of detail on that particular line item relative to how many drains that they've cleaned up and
I
that
thought
sort of
that's
thing.
what that was. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Because the difference was striking. So
Yeah,
thank
that
you,
popped
Steve.
up in 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lucido.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering what more than a job campaign is.
That's an advertising campaign for, advertising billboards and things to attract and retain talent into the county.
All right, thank you.
Steve,
I think
and
Andy
obviously
would
some of
like
these line items are, the departments are not here to speak about them. Andy, where'd you come from?
Crouched down behind Steve and Mark.
What I was trying to say is that all these departments that have appropriations are not under Steve's jurisdictions. Obviously, these are specific to those departments, which when they do come to the board, they'll speak about it. But Andy, since you're here, if you want to talk about the HR ones.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner Sabatini. And I certainly don't want to speak for all of HR or put words into the HR department's mouth. But Commissioner Lucido, with you being new, I thought it was an important opportunity for me to talk to you about that. And I'll share with you our website. That's the landing page for More Than a Job. It's an internally created campaign that really highlights the different employees who work here within Macomb County and the different jobs that we have available here in Macomb County. We're constantly talking about attraction and retention. We're working on that retention piece, and we've had a lot of conversation about that. The attraction piece is incredibly important as well. With the workday transition, we think that our job postings will get out a little more widespread, but we'd really like to be able to use some significant funding, as you see there, to work towards amplifying that message far and wide. I don't know if you've had an opportunity or listened to WWJ in the morning, but you heard a lot about Chippewa Valley hiring towards the beginning of the school year. My understanding is that they had a lot of success with radio advertising, print advertising, billboard advertising, and you see it other places too where it says we're hiring. Ours is way more than that, and that's really what our focus was. When we say more than a job, it was going out to our employees, asking them why they work for Macomb County, selecting a word or several words, and highlighting that, because it isn't just the paycheck for our folks, as it's not for you when you ran for this post. I mean, maybe it is, but I'm certain that it's not.
Yeah.
So that's really the focus of that campaign. That public service is important, it's valuable, and if we can get that amplified a little bit, it's not just the paycheck, it's also what you get to do within your community.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Steve, bank fee expense, the $90,000, what is that specifically?
That is relative to the treasurer's office. And so we pay bank fees essentially, to have money, bank fees for our main checking account. We also then earn interest on that at the same time. So we kind of gross those two things off, or gross those two things up.
Okay. Are we accepting credit cards for payment?
In various departments, yes. We
Okay.
do have some online payments and, things of that nature. Animal
Do we know
control
what
is
the
one of
total
them.
cost is for that?
Pardon?
Do we know what the total cost is for the credit card processing? Because obviously we're just paying the bank to process that.
I can get that for you. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. The only reason I'm asking is because I know, at least most recently, most municipalities, they're, if they charge, if they accept credit card payments, they're charging 3% to the user to process the credit card fee rather than
Is a convenience fee.
as a convenience fee. So, I don't know what that total is, that what we're, paying to the banks right now, but that could be something that we offer as a savings to us and pass it on to the user if need be. I know Advancing Macomb was here yesterday and they were asking for $100,000, which is not recommended in the budget. So that was discussed yesterday based on the presentation. Just want to make commissioners aware of that as well. Seeing Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. Andy, is Andy still here? Regarding the More Than a Job campaign, and maybe you guys talked about this last year, but why isn't this budget in the HR budget?
You know, I've been fighting with Steve about that, and I tell him that every day, and he doesn't give me a good answer. You know, I think it's because it impacts every single department that
Got it.
the county
Okay,
has.
that explains it.
Okay.
Now,
Really, I could go on for like 10 minutes, please.
that's a good answer. So I know that the board didn't allocate money to that campaign last year. Were you guys still able to do some sort of More Than a Job campaign? Maybe you did. I sort of heard.
Yeah, I don't know if I stand up like 2 inches taller, sorry, when we talk about this, because the partnership between planning and economic development, the HR department, and then the other departments throughout the county that have helped us put this campaign together is just a source of pride like I can't tell you. So with Chair Brown's permission and Chair Sabatini, if I may address Chair Brown in that way, I'd like to send that to the landing page to the whole board so that you can see what it is that we've created. And yes, we have the landing page. Yes, we've done some things on LinkedIn and those types of platforms.
So those campaigns were done through the Planning and Economic Development
All internal, yep,
budget.
yep. Not
Okay.
the budget, but the actual people who work down there. So yes, the budget.
So would you still be able to do that if this money was not appropriated this year?
We can continue to have it on our own webpage. We can continue to have it on our own LinkedIn page. We can't get it out in the community without advertising funds for it. This is the advertising for that campaign. We've created it internally without spending a dime outside of what you've already appropriated for us.
So is the campaign going to be like social media,
Yes,
YouTube, LinkedIn?
yes. It's already on LinkedIn, but we can
I-
amplify it with extra funds.
Okay, I just wonder, because social media advertising, you can get some really good ROI without spending a lot of money. So could you talk a little bit about like the success of it? What you have done this year without the marketing, the advertising?
That would be a better question for Carlin, to be quite honest with you, the impact that it's had this year and whether or not people are self-reporting that they've come to the county because of that campaign. Another point of this is to get our opportunities out there on a greater scale, and it's a point of pride. When you see the campaign, you'll see the individual employees that we have, and the reason that we want to get it out there is that we have a place for everybody and we welcome everybody here to be with us. And we really want that to be visible everywhere throughout the county. So not just on social media, because there's one gentleman that we have who's a blue coat, who I believe might be he works also in Washington Township someplace, and he talks about it's an opportunity to give in retirement. So I don't know how many of our retirees are out there looking at LinkedIn, looking at opportunities like that, because they might not know. But if we have it someplace where they go to get their information, then we might find an additional candidate there.
Okay.
You know, so those types of things. I'll try to continue to be brief, sorry. I'm
All right, got it.
long-winded.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And Steve, my next question is for you. What is the police training center?
We have a membership where we pay so much for so many folks to be able to go to the academy.
This is for the sheriff's
Yeah, for the
department?
Sheriff's Department, yeah.
Okay. And then the one Macomb, is that now under Health and Community
I think it's under,
Services?
I want to say it's under Health and Community Services. And it would be, let's see. Would be under, I will confirm this, but I believe that's under the supplies and services line item in Health and Community Services. That budget's
7,000?
57,400. I'll confirm that,
Okay,
Commissioner.
all right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Steve, really quick, why was that moved? Like, why is that one in their budget and other ones are not in theirs?
Those are initiatives in that umbrella for all those departments, but it's specific to the departments that fall under Health and Community Services.
Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask about the banking. You caught that. But I have a question with SEMCOG. How do they determine the cost per area? I'm sure, I would think that it's not the same cost per every area. I don't know. That's why I'm asking. How do they
I think
determine
it's
the cost?
relative population.
They figured it was population.
It's all relative, so their costs divided by every member's percentage of total population.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. I wanted to speak on the More Than a Job campaign. You know, our board's been really aggressively trying to market what we do as a board out to the community, let them know, because what a lot of things government does is a secret, right? The same thing's true if we want to attract people to our county. We need to do more than just talk amongst ourselves on our own social media platforms, because, you know, there's a greater audience out there that we need to reach. And I think that we should, we can all, this is not a vote, but we're just hearing the information, but it's something I think that it falls in line with what we've been trying to do as a board for the last several years around here, trying to push out what we do and try to market what we do. And, you know, it's a big push now to try to recruit people. We're looking at pay increases, but also letting people know the opportunities are here is important. And I think this is a step in the right direction. We didn't fund it last year, but I think now is the time to do it. It would dovetail nicely to what we're trying to do with our pay, to try to increase wages around here, as well as let people know what opportunities present themselves. And so just offer that as a comment. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, seeing no other speakers on appropriations, we'll move on to non-departmental, which is C63.
62. Going back to C60. So C63, again, the supplies and services carries over to C64, but non-departmental is where we account for what we refer to as general revenue. So you'll see property taxes. The intergovernmental line item is 38 million. What's in there is revenue sharing, liquor tax, PPT reimbursement, and marijuana tax. Half of that is revenue sharing, just shy of $20 million. 19.8 is what we have built into the 24 budget for revenue sharing. About $8.8 million for liquor tax, $9.5 million for PPT reimbursement, and $725,000 for the marijuana tax. We also account for investment income here. I've talked previously about the increase there. The indirect cost allocation we've mentioned several times. The personnel line item is the turnover factor, and then capital outlay is a combination of contributions to the capital improvement fund in addition to dollars in the general fund budget for vehicle purchases and furniture. So that's a brief review of non-departmental, with the exception of, if you go down further, you'll see a line item called titled transfers out. That's the general fund support or transfers to various funds throughout the county, and that's detailed on page C62.
Steve, really quick, charges for services. Those would be services that we're providing to cities, municipalities, whomever.
The lion's share of that line item is real estate transfer tax and recording fees. Or, I'm sorry, real estate transfer tax and the 50% drain match. 500,000 match for the $1 million expense.
Okay, it's in there.
That's the lion's share of that.
Got it. Investment income. Budgeted 8.2 million for next year, and then you basically have it dropping. Are you anticipating interest rates to drop by 50%?
No, I'm expecting cash balances to drop as we spend our ARPA money.
Gotcha. All right, seeing no other questions on this budget, we'll move on. One page back for operating transfers, C62. Questions, commissioners? Steve, do you want to just briefly, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but
Yeah, I think it is pretty straightforward. Consistent, number of, the funds that we're contributing to are pretty consistent from year to year. I don't think there's anything significantly different here than prior years. I'd say with the exception of the $2 million appropriation to Martha Seabury that was made last year. We did not repeat that, but everything else here is fairly straightforward, pretty consistent. So I really don't have much to add. And again, the departments to which these funds are being appropriated will be here for their various budget hearings as we move through the process as well. So if you have more specific questions about what the general fund might be supporting, if there's anything specific, they'll be able to answer those questions. In some cases, these appropriations fund the entire, like all the operations of a department, basically,
Steve, what's the increase for the delinquent real property tax revolving fund? I know
So
that
that's
increased.
funding two things. Half of one position in the treasurer's office that Treasurer Rocca will speak about. It's a collection specialist. And then one initiative in community action is the creation of a financial empowerment center. It's a cost of about 250 or 250. I want to say 257, but don't hold me to that exact number, but around 250,000. And Treasurer Rocca has committed to fund half of that with delinquent tax revolving fund dollars. So that will, the intent of that is to, one of the intents is to have people learn or educate them on financial matters so that they stay out of delinquencies, basically, stay out of the delinquent tax, or stay off the delinquent tax rolls, is one of the goals.
Okay, so basically, the other portion of this is coming out of the treasurer's budget, and the portion is coming out of the fund.
So for the collection specialist, the other portion of the collection specialist position is coming out of the treasurer. The other portion of the financial empowerment center is coming from Macomb Community Action. And then that's built into the contribution to Macomb Community Action.
Okay, and I believe we have a program with MSU Extension in regards to some of the similar things that.
They do provide somewhat similar courses.
Commissioner Brown.
Where do we find the liability insurance to pay off our
So that, as
lawsuits
you
and so
move through,
forth?
as you review every department's budget, there's a line item called internal services. There's another.
Comes out of that.
Right, and there was two schedules that I provided in my budget overview, which was one, what's the breakdown by major item within internal services, which is liability insurance, property insurance, phone chargebacks, copier rental, indirect cost chargebacks.
Right.
There's one more that's escaping my mind right now.
forgotten.
And then there was a separate schedule specific to the components of the indirect cost chargeback.
All right,
So,
all right. Thank you. I'd forgotten. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Steve, will the opioid settlement show up in our budget, and when will that start?
that has started, and it is. It's in here, I just don't know the page.
Well, okay, I can look.
It's in the it's in here.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just thought it might be in this section and.
No, well. There is no contribution to it. So it's not here.
Oh,
But it's
okay.
in the budget, so it's.
Well, I thought it might show as funds
Yeah,
being
since
transferred
we're not
in or
contributing
something.
to it, It's on page D10.
Did you say D10?
D is in dog, yes. D10 of the budget.
Okay, yes. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, seeing no other questions for this page, we'll move on to debt service, pages F1 and F2.
Very little to talk about here. I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm always very proud to indicate or say that we have a very enviable, I would say, debt profile. I mentioned during my budget overview, other than the two debt issues that we have outstanding relative to the retiree healthcare liability, we have one construction-related bond issue for the central campus renovation, and those bonds retire in 2030. So very, very, very favorable debt profile that we have here.
Okay,
Let's
seeing
keep
no
it that way,
questions
right?
on debt service. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Done with budget reviews for today. Vote.
Thank you, Steve. We
You're welcome.
appreciate your work.
Passes 13 to 0.
Okay,
Motion
next
passes
item
13 to 0.
is, Correspondence, Central Intake Assessment Center Dashboard Report, September 2023. I need a motion to receive and file.
So moved by Nard.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Nard, supported by Commissioner Van Sickle. Any questions? Or is there anyone to speak about the update? If not, are there any questions?
Can they come in person and give us some update on the progress, what they're doing, instead sending,
Commissioner Grow, we can't hear you. Your mic is.
if they could come in person once in a while, give us a report instead doing form of letter?
We can ask them to do that next time with their next report.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, please vote.
I can't vote, I'll say yes.
You can vote.
Motion passes 13 to 0.
Okay, next is public participation. This is the second opportunity for public participation for those who would like to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any issue. Anyone from the public like to speak? Once, twice, close public participation. Next is commissioner comments. Seeing no one. We'll move to adjournment. Need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
By Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Zinner. Please vote. Thanks, everybody.
Zinner, yes.
See you tomorrow.
Yes, I'll vote anyway.